2.2. The Pacific Coast. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo sailed along the coast of California between 1542 and 1543, discovering San Diego and Monterey Bays. After he died, as a result of confrontation with the Indians, the expedition continued under the command of Bartolomé Ferrelo. It reached Cape Mendocino and sailed further north along the Oregon coast. Since 1565, Spanish galleons crossed the Pacific between Acapulco and Manila once a year in each direction, initiating a first financial and commercial globalization between Asia, America, and Europe. Trip from Acapulco to Manila took about 3 months, and a stopover was made on the island of Guam. The voyage from Manila to Acapulco was a very tough journey that would take 4 to 6 months. They would cross the Pacific with no stopovers, and the first point on the American continent that they would sight was the aforementioned Cape Mendocino. From there, the galleons made a relatively easy voyage, making use of the California current. Finding a safe stopover right after crossing the ocean would be of great use. The galleons of 1584, 1587, and 1595 had instructions to explore the coast, but they were not able to find the desired refuge. In 1602 to 1603, Sebastian Vizcaino traveled the same coast as Cabrillo, creating meticulous maps, landing several times in Alta California, and renaming some of the places discovered by his predecessor. José de Galvez deemed the Russian advance from Alaska southward along the Pacific coast to be a threat. So, in 1767, he promoted the expansion of Spain into Alta California, and 2 expeditions were sent in 1769. One set out by sea from the port of San Blas in present-day Mexican state of Nayarit, and another by land from Baja California. After reaching Alta California, Gaspar de Portola set out by land from San Diego Bay looking for Monterey Bay, but actually ended up at San Francisco Bay. It had gone unnoticed for over 2 centuries, not only to Cabrillo, Ferrelo, and Vizcaino, but also to the Manila galleons, which sailed through those waters year after year. The news of a Russian and also an English presence north of Cape Mendocino led to the start of a series of Spanish naval expeditions in the North Pacific, with the aim of reconnoitering, mapping, and taking possession of the discovered lands. The first expeditions, captained by Juan Pérez Hernández, with Esteban José Martínez as first officer, took place in 1774. Given the limited results obtained due to the very adverse meteorology and currents, another one had to be organized. In 1775, the second expedition discovered and mapped the mouth of the Columbia River. It was commanded by Bruno de Ezeta, and its members included Juan Pérez Hernández, Juan de la Bodega y Cuadra, and Francisco Antonio Morey. They crossed the Strait of Juan de Fuca in the state of Washington, and shortly after, Ezeta had to return due to scurvy. De la Bodega and Morey continued sailing to parallel 58, finally in Alaska, discovering Bucareli Bay. The third expedition took place in 1779. It was under the command of Ignacio de Arteaga y Bazan, and once again Juan de la Bodega and Francisco Antonio Morey took part in it, intended to assess Russian penetration into Alaska, to seek the Northwest Passage, and to capture James Cook if he was found in Spanish waters. The fourth expedition, captained by Esteban José Martínez, reached the anchorage of the small island of Nootka along the southwestern coast of Vancouver Island in 1788. Here, they established Fort San Miguel and the bastion of San Rafael, beating the English to it. The Spanish flag flew there until 1795. After the signing of the Third Nootka Convention, Juan de la Bodega represented Spain in its negotiations. Both nations provisionally renounced the sovereignty of that enclave. Other expeditions continued to travel and map the North Pacific American coast to Alaska. The expedition of Alejandro Malaspina and José de Bustamante, 1789 to 1794, the most important Spanish scientific expedition of the 18th century, named the Malaspina Glacier in Alaska. They also came into contact with the Tlingit indigenous people, leaving numerous pictorial testimonies of the natives and the local flora and fauna. Dionisio Alcalá Galiano and Cayetano Valdés went all over Vancouver Island. In 1791, Salvador Fidalgo built Fort Núñez Gaona, now Nia Bay, and named Córdoba Bay and Port Valdés. Manuel Quimper sailed through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. In 1792, Jacinto Caamaño thoroughly described the southern coast of Nootka and assigned Spanish place names. Finally, Francisco de Elisa and pilot Juan Martínez Isayas reconnoitered the mouth of the Columbia River, the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and San Francisco Bay. The Hispanic monarchy continued to consider those Northwest territories to be its own until they were jointly occupied by Great Britain and the United States in 1818. In the end, Spain renounced its sovereignty in the Adam-Onís Treaty of 1819.